some spirits are so weak that you don't much feel them. Others, you can feel their presence. Right. You can feel the negative emotions. And then there are others that can move things. And
okay, guys, welcome to this special Halloween edition of the Grimerica show. Another little free bonus we gave all to you guys. You're welcome. And of course, big thanks to one of our favorite listeners, Garrett Lee, for setting this up. Of course, Garrett Lee sent us the didgeridoos and met up with me in California. And he's a regular of the chats. So yeah, he set it up with Pastor Dave. It's a great chat. And of course, as always, we got here non-locally because it's Dungeons and Dragons night. Graham, not the Dungeon Master, Dunlop.
I've got some creepy stories.
Yeah, did your last minute fucking call out work?
No, I didn't. No, but I got some. I was gonna just say I got creepy Dungeons and Dragons stories, but I don't want to get all geeky on you here.
Okay. Oh, you have no. Don't tell us your Dungeons and Dragons stories here, man.
So this was an amazing episode, though. David was very frank, and it was probably one of my favorites ever. You know, it was one of those real ones you don't realize you're going to end up having. We have these great conversations with these guys who have been doing, like he's in spiritual warfare, man. It was pretty crazy. It's like, and did you realize that 20 years ago to today, the actual day is when this happened?
Right now, the day we're recording this intro?
No, the day it's going to release, which is tomorrow.
Tomorrow. It's going to release today.
Is it? Well, make sure it's after midnight.
Go fuck yourself.
Oh,
we're
actually,
in the UK. Well, if we run on Greenwich Mean Time, then we're good. Which I think we did. We do. We're a global show. Should we? Or even if we go on UTC, we're good.
So yeah, this was an amazing chat. I just wanted to say that, and thanks a lot to Garrett for setting it up.
It was one of those ones, you know. It was late. You never heard of the guy. You figured it was going to be a quick one. We started this one pretty late, and then next, you know, it's like almost 1 a.m, and you don't want to stop.
Yeah, exactly.
Actually, I think it was almost midnight. We started at 10 or we started at 11?
10, I think.
10, yeah, and we went to almost midnight. And it was a great chat. Yeah, definitely in the top 10. And of course, next week we go to like 1 a.m. Son of a bitch. Too old for this podcasting stuff. So support the show.
Yep.
Grimerica.ca/support. That's what allows us to give you these nice little bonus apps.
Yeah, we got a bunch of reviews lately, so that's nice.
Oh, yeah, we'll save those for the next show, maybe. Read a couple of them.
Yeah, but reviewing the show helps a lot if you can't support financially.
Yeah, so a bunch of people did that last week, actually, so thanks for that. So that, of course, is if you check out Grimerica.ca/support, there's a bunch of different options there. You can help us out financially from $1 to $30 a month. If you could sign up for one of those, it's great. If you're getting a little value from the show and it's filling a void, then maybe you can fill a void in our checking account and send a little money back our way. Winter's coming. The bills are rolling in. And yeah, it just helps out a lot. It really does. And it helps us grow. We're trying to set up the video thing and we like to do some other things, but
yeah, no ads.
And we never want to have ads or paywalls. Which brings us to the Black Budget support feed, which is the money you get, the content you get after you pay.
We still put out extra content here too, but we just have another avenue.
That's
now
not a paywall. That's a reward system.
More controversial, kind of like even more loose cannon style than this.
Yeah, and it's more of a reward system for the people that have chosen to support the show, because you don't have to do it at any set level. You can sign up for $1 a month, or you can sign up for $30 a month, and you know, I'll give you access to the feed. I even had one guy didn't have any money, so he went and reviewed the show, sent me a screenshot, and I gave him access.
Oh, really? Oh, that's cool.
You know, we can work something out. If you can't afford it, you can't afford the $1 a month. I get it. In there, let me know, and we can work something out. We can review the show or something, or sign 5 people up for the newsletter or some shit.
Send us in stories. Synchronicities, trip reports, sightings, all that kind of stuff to Graham@Grimerica.com.
Joe Brick, I literally mailed your thing 10 minutes ago. So I went back out of my from the studio into my work truck into my construction vest because I was walking past what I thought was a mailbox, and it wasn't a mailbox. So luckily, it managed to make it back out of my vest.
Oh my God! I can't believe a piece of an envelope made it all that way. You're losing it.
Joe Brick has a bunch of like on the spot work accounting on it too. Because I was trying to he's like, well, someone had asked me what I thought the field price would be, or a rough number on what for so many hours of welding. So I was like scribbling it out on the back of the thing I noticed as I was handing it to the lady today.
And he emailed and said, "Oh, thanks that it was mailed." And I was cringing, so I thought it might not even be mailed yet.
Well, it's mailed today, and I'm going to send Felix's out today too. And now I know exactly what it cost to send.
So I did get somebody in the chats there sent me a little scary story for Halloween. It's very short. Bill. I don't think it might be Bill the Shill.
Bill the Shill?
Maybe.
Bill the Bitcoin Shill.
You ready for this? Do you have any creepy music or anything like that? Do you have your jingle board?
I'm trying to see what I got.
Because we do have a UFO quote lined up as well.
I'm trying to think of what I got for a scary jingle. Hey, this one might work.
And now, another adventure in Coffee Enemas.
That does sound kind of scary. No. You can't play the whole thing.
Not even
that's good.
Not even the part where you run at the end.
Okay, that's good. That's good.
That is another way to get
these pants off.
access to the support feed is make a jingle.
Oh, it's over. Oh, thank God. It's over. Well, all right then. What is this? What is this I feel inside of me? All this power. All this invigorating energy.
Let's hear it.
All right, there we go. Okay, ready?
Yeah.
Okay, turn that down. I can't.
Oh, it is down on the mixer. Okay.
Moved into our current house 8 years ago. I was in the basement the first day, looking at where the electrical boxes were. Electricity was off because we were replacing the fuse box, 1942 house. Very clearly, I heard a female voice at the top of the steps say, "Are you there?" Not my wife's voice. Thought it might be the real estate lady. Walked over towards the basement stairs and was going to yell up, but again heard, "Are you there?" Looked over the whole house. No one anywhere.
That's it?
That's it.
That's it.
That's it, eh? Nice, eh? Thanks, Bill.
Thanks, Bill.
I got another one here.
Okay.
This is called The Bride. Oh, I don't even want to read that. I'm not going to read the title of it because it kind of gives it away. Back in 1975.
Is it more than 6 seconds?
Yeah.
Okay.
A young couple, both 18, decided to get married right after high school. The father of the bride lived in Palm Beach in a mansion and was able to afford a big wedding for them. To make a long story short, they got married and the wedding was beautiful. After the wedding, they had a big reception in an old building and everybody got pretty drunk. When there were only about 20 people left, the groom decided that they would play hide and seek. Everyone agreed and the groom was it. They all went and hid and the game went on. After about 20 minutes, everybody had been found except the bride. Everyone looked everywhere and tore the whole place apart looking after her.
Looking after her?
Looking for her. That might be the way like a newfie would say that or something. After a few hours, the groom was furious, thinking the bride was playing a terrible trick. Eventually, everybody went home. A few weeks later, the groom, having placed a missing persons report, gave up looking for her. Heartbroken, he tried to go on with his life. 3 years later, a little old woman was cleaning the place up. She happened to be in the attic and saw an old trunk. She dusted it off and, out of curiosity, opened it. She screamed at the top of her lungs, ran out of the building, and called the police. Apparently, the bride had decided to hide in the trunk for the game of hide and seek. When she sat down, the lid fell, knocking her unconscious and locking her inside. She suffocated after a day or so. When the woman found her, she was rotting, her mouth in the shape of a scream.
You never heard her?
No.
They just stopped looking? They just looked for a couple hours. You're like, fuck it. She must have ran off. Like the worst friends ever. They didn't check the attic?
Maybe it was a pretty thick trunk, like a soundproof trunk, you know?
This is ridiculous. Who sent that in?
That was, I found that online.
Jesus Christ. This is what happens.
This is what happens when you get no response out of the chats. Like, I finally show up in the chats and like,
this is what happens when you give it like 9 hours of lead time. We don't have enough listeners for 9 hours. Maybe true. Like 3 days.
Yeah, true that. I should have given more heads up.
So what else do you got?
I got a good UFO quote. That's what I'll stick with that one.
Okay. Which jingle should we play this time?
Down and Graham going deep. It's a profound UFO quote of the week. Words to ponder and critique. It's a profound UFO quote of the week.
The bulk of the object was plainly visible at this time and appeared to be triangular shaped with a bright blue-purple light on the left and a smaller, less blue, less bright light on the right end. The bulk of the object appeared to be dark gray in color with no other distinguishing features. It appeared to be about 200 feet wide and about 40 to 50 feet thick in the middle, tapering off toward both ends. There was no noise or any trail. The bright purple light illuminated the ground directly underneath it and the area in front of it, including the highway and the interior of our patrol car. After arriving at approximately its original position, it went straight up in the air and disappeared at a 25 to 30 degrees above the horizon. And that was Deputy Sheriff Bob Good, Damon, Texas, United States, September 3rd, 1965. And the object was also witnessed by Chief Deputy Billy McCoy.
Billy.
Yeah.
Chief Deputy Billy McCoy. What year? 65?
Yeah.
Wonder what those boys are up to now. You going trick-or-treating tomorrow? Are you going to hand out candy?
Yeah, I think I should have some candy here just in case.
In case any of the kids make it up to the 3rd floor?
Yeah.
Maybe you should just give an extra bowl of candy to the people down on the 1st floor.
Yeah, I know. I should. Maybe that's a good idea. Just say, don't tell the kids not to come upstairs.
Just shut your light off.
We did that's what the house looks like at night. There's some pretty creepy spiders on it.
Oh, there's some. You guys got a real enthusiast in the house. Yeah, I was never a Halloween enthusiast. I used to be like a Halloween drunk, sure, but not a like decorate the house type cat.
Yeah, I know. It's getting a bit too much. Consumerism at its finest. You should see all the stuff they're selling out there now.
We get no kids, man. Now all we do is I'll buy one bag of candy, like a $5 bag, maybe a $10 bag, and I'll dump it. And I'll dump it in the bowl, and I'll just leave it out on the deck. And usually no one comes because we have terrible position
in the roads.
These kids have it all figured out to get maximized. These kids aren't stupid, you know. Like
they don't want to go all the way
these
down
kids
that.
Are smarter than they were when I was a kid, and I wasn't stupid.
Yeah,
I didn't waste my time on one-sided streets unless it was the tail end of the, unless I didn't have a way around it, and especially not like I'm a one-sided street that just leads into like the beach and then the intersection, then nothing. And like the business section. So you're like giving up a mile or a kilometer and no fucking candy.
Well, we used to hit the apartments and go, that was maximizing it. You could go in, knocking all the doors in the apartment complex. We
didn't have any apartments in my hometown. Me and my cousin could almost get the whole town. And
How
that
long
would
would it
be,
take?
we had to cut it up, so we'd have to leave early. But then back then, the time changed before Halloween, so we'd be out by like 5
By
o'clock.
5 or something?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we make it so we went past my grandma's house halfway. And then we drop off a full pillowcase.
No.
And then go
Do
again.
the switcheroo and then start with an empty bag.
Then start fresh and boom. And end up with 2 pillow bags full of candy. Yeah.
Oh, my sister used to just hoard hers for so long, and it drove me nuts because mine would be all eaten, and I'd always try and beg some off of her.
Mine wasn't never gone right away, but it never lasted as long as you thought it was going to last.
Exactly. Just pick through all the good stuff, and then you end up with all those like creepy orange candies in the end.
Tootsie Rolls.
Tootsie Rolls are the last to go.
I fucking hate Tootsie Rolls. Don't give Tootsie Rolls, you sons of bitches. Anyway, what else you got?
That's about it, buddy.
We got like 4 more minutes to kill here.
Just thought we'd do a short intro.
It's a bonus, so we don't have to.
Anyways.
So we can half-ass it. You give me the wrap it up, so maybe I'll play another jingle.
Okay, there we go. We had the new moon, dark sky, which is great. Had a planned camping, pitched our tent, went back there for the night. Crystal clear. Darkest night. So I burned that meditation with the singing bowl, and then shit starts happening. Pow, pow, pow. We started seeing flashbulbs. Streakers coming down. Grim Dunlop is the he said it star. Grim Dunlop is the he said it star. Blubbity, blubbity.
The requests are really starting to come in for the...
It's embarrassing every time I hear that. That still makes me laugh.
People are hounding me to make a blubbity blah fucking MP3 tone now because people want that as their text
ringtone,
tone.
really?
I think it's more of a text tone. Blubbity blah.
Oh, yeah, that'd be good text tone, yeah.
Blubbity blah.
Well, send me a copy then.
Okay. Bingo, bango. Yeah. Okay, that's all you guys get. Crown's got Dungeons and Dragons, so it's a bonus app. Happy Halloween. Boo, I guess. Whatever. Be safe. Don't give out Tootsie Rolls. And enjoy the chat. An unknown chat that plummeted into the... Not plummeted. What's the opposite of plummeted?
Skyrocketed?
Skyrocketed into the all-time favorite list.
Yeah. All right, we've got a special one tonight. We've got Garrett Lee helping us out, one of our friends of the show. And we've got on the line Pastor and Cowboy Dave Bryan. And he's the author of The Spirit and the Serpent and the Savior, which is a true story of occult-level spiritual warfare. Now, this will be interesting. We've talked about spiritual warfare a little bit on a greater context here on the show, but it'll be good to dig into a couple like real-life examples here.
We can get down to the nitty-gritty, kind of like down to the battlefield.
Yeah, exactly. So thanks for joining us, guys. Thanks for helping us out, Garrett.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having us, guys. It's awesome.
Welcome to the show, Dave. And welcome to the show, Garrett. Actually, Garrett, some people might remember Garrett from the 4-year special. Yeah, we should, I suppose, before we go too far, maybe if you could, I'm assuming most of our listeners probably haven't heard of the book, so maybe if you could just sort of give us a quick synopsis of the book without giving away too much.
Sure. Yeah. Well, going back about 15, 16 years ago, seems like, we had an experience with some pretty high up occult practitioners. I grew up on a ranch in Idaho, and I didn't even know this kind of stuff existed. But being a pastor, we just reached out to broken people of all kinds. So anyway, one of the ladies that we reached out to, we didn't really realize what her roots were. And we moved her into our house just to help her. And it was after we moved her in that really bizarre things started happening. And of course, there's lots of those stories in the Bible. And so I had read stories about Jesus casting demons out of people and his disciples doing the same. And for that matter, I knew the Bible commissioned Christians to do the same, cast out demons, pray for the sick. I just never done it. So when it started happening in the house, it really was a game changer for me. But anyway, through that, we found out that she was one of the daughters of Anton Levay, who was the founder of the Church of Satan and wrote the Satanic Bible and founded the Black Victorian Church of Satan down in San Francisco in 1966. And here we had this gal living in our house, and all hell broke loose, literally. So anyway, the book just records that after we had her in our house for about 10 and a half months, and she eventually changed her name, took our family name, calls herself Deborah Joy Bryan now for a legal name. And we still love her and are in touch with her. But that process of helping her deal with the spiritual warfare, occult level spiritual warfare, and get free of demonic power, that launched us into a realm that we'd never been in. And in the time since then, that really came to a crux Halloween Eve of 1997. And since then, I spent a lot of time teaching on spiritual warfare and what we call deliverance, which is how to get free from the powers of curses and of demonic entrenchment. So anyway, as I began to travel and teach about that, everybody asked about the story. And so years later, I wrote that book, The Serpent and the Savior, just really as a response to people who wanted to know more about the details of the story. So that's a little about the book. It's about us taking in Ray LaVey. She's gone by many names, but that was her coven name. Her legal name now is Deborah Joy Bryan. And we helped her come out of the Church of Satan. And she had been through 6 of the 7 rituals of defilement. I don't know if you're familiar with Aleister Crowley or the rituals of defilement, but
we are a little bit. But yeah, if you could give us a quick update.
Okay. Aleister Crowley wrote the Luciferian Book of the Law. It's a famous occult tome. And he was a Brit that felt like that his purpose in life was to pave the way for the lawless one, or the man of sin, what the Christian Bible refers to as the Antichrist. And so he coined the term that we use a lot now, the New Age, but he called it the New Luciferian Age. And his concept was that there would be a New Age that was free from any of the morality, the underpinnings of morality that came through Christian teachings. And so he called it the New Luciferian Age. And his goal was to pave the way for the coming of this evil leader. And I don't know how much your listeners know about the Antichrist, but the idea of anti is not just against Christ, but in place of Christ. And so the Antichrist of Scripture is the offspring of Lucifer and a woman. Just like Jesus Christ was the offspring of Mary. It was God in the flesh, and the Antichrist is prophesied to be Satan in the flesh. And so anyway, Aleister Crowley thought his job was to do everything to pave the way for the Antichrist. So he came up with demonic help. He came up with these rituals of defilement. And they were to be, a woman was to go through one of these 7 rituals every year for 7 consecutive years on Halloween morning. And after 7 years, she was considered to be defiled completely. That's why they're called the rituals of defilement. And the idea is after a human was defiled sufficiently, she would, in a sense, earn the right to be the mother of the Antichrist. So anyway, I know that's funky stuff, but that's what the rituals of defilement are about. And Ray had been through 6 out of those 7, and she didn't want to go through with the 7th, which is called the Bride of Satan ceremony. And so she came to us for help after completing 6 of those 7 rituals, and she moved into our home in midsummer of 1997, and she was scheduled to be the Bride of Satan on Halloween night. Or, it's actually the first 3 hours of the 31st, which is, we would kind of think of it as Halloween Eve. But from midnight to 3 a.m. on the 31st is the witching hour where they do the rituals of defilement. So she was lined up to do that and didn't want to go through with it. We moved her into our house because the motto of the church is to find a need and meet it, find a hurt and heal it. And so we just knew she was a broken woman that had a lot of problems, and we felt like we should move her in and try to help her out, which my wife and I have done our whole lives. We're always have somebody living on the couch, or always have our spare bedrooms full. So that's how we got into this whole thing. And then, of course, we began to face things that were extremely, they were supernatural, they were very evil, and they went beyond anything that I had ever even imagined. So the learning curve was pretty steep, and we just found ourselves in the deep end trying to, connect the dots between some of the Bible verses that tell us to cast out demons in Jesus' name and some of the things that were happening in our front room, which were really, really bizarre.
Yeah, that's scary. I mean, we really appreciate your honesty in coming on to talk about this. We talk about this kind of thing a little bit on the show, and I've been interested in it as far as affecting my belief system in good and evil, or in and I'm not talking about really necessarily in a religious way, but or I don't know how to explain it, but I've read the book like The Rite on possessions, and it was quite an eye opener. So I've looked into it a bit and read on it a bit, and it's one thing I always keep in mind when I'm doubting that there's powers greater than what we know about, is that I believe that a lot of these stories are true, and there's something going on. So I think it's really important to talk about it, and especially nowadays when I feel like there's spiritual warfare going on at the high levels in our society. It's good to get some people like yourself to talk about specific examples.
Yeah.
And you did sort of have, if I remember correctly, you kind of had the chance to maybe get to see this coming a little bit better, but you didn't quite see the signs.
Sounds like you read the book. Well, yeah, that's true. And that was supernatural also. But if you're familiar with prophecy, the concept of prophecy, I'm privileged to know some guys that that operate that way, and they have foreknowledge of things to come. And one of them is an old fellow that's been a missionary all over the world, but mainly in South America. And so, 8 years before this happened, he gave me another book, and it was called "He Came to Set the Captives Free," and it was about a lady that had been freed from the rituals of defilement. And again, I grew up on a ranch in Idaho, and we didn't. I didn't know diddly squat about any of this satanic stuff. I couldn't imagine anyone actually wanting to worship the devil, But anyway, so I was oblivious to the whole thing. And this guy said, you need to read this book because you're going to be face to face with the devil, and this will help you know what to do. Well, my mindset at the time, I was just a good old boy, and I didn't even know how to spell Halloween. So I looked at that book, and it was just too weird for me. Now I'm somewhat of an expert on weirdology, but back in the day, it was just too weird for me. So I put it on the shelf and ignored it for 8 years. And then the same guy, he called me from Chile, and he said, I know you haven't read the book because God showed me that. But he said, I'm flying to Yuba City because you're about to be face to face with the devil and you're not ready for it. So anyway, he flew back to Yuba City, and he reproved me. He said, 8 years ago, I warned you that this was about to happen, and instead of preparing for it, you just ignored it. So now you've got about a week. And sure enough, a week later, Ray LaVey walked into the church, and it was on. I wasn't ready for it, but it was on.
Wow. Garrett, should we get him to get into some of the details of that a little bit, or?
Yeah. Is it okay if I go over some
Take it away.
Explanatory stuff? Awesome. So Dave, you mentioned in the book, dark spirits, human and demonic. Now, I'm guessing, because that was new to me, can you explain the difference between an evil human spirit and evil demonic spirit and how that correlated in this story?
Yeah. Well, one of the things that people commonly are confused about is the variety that's out there in the spirit realm. And it's really, when you get over that hump, it makes sense, because in this realm, in the natural realm, scientists say there's somewhere between 10 and 50 million different species of living things,
right, in
the natural realm, And then, but we tend to think in the spirit realm, there's only just a few varieties,
Right.
That's true, yeah.
Yeah, but the spirit realm is, it predates time, the time-space continuum. It's the eternal realm. Okay. So there's all kind of things out there, and that's why people have so many different kinds of encounters with different spiritual beings. And really, when you talk about spirit beings, the scientific concept is an interdimensional entity.
Right.
It can come into our dimension, but it also can leave our dimension, and so they supersede us.
Right.
In that we can't follow them. We can't break into their dimension much, but they can break into ours. So there's all kinds of interdimensional entities. And, the whole area of aliens. And, of course, if you can go back to any culture in the world, and they have quite a rich heritage of experiences with these interdimensional entities. So the two you – go ahead.
No, that's good. That's okay. Perfect.
Yeah, so the two that you asked about were human spirits and demon spirits. And demon spirits are spirits of the unrighteous dead that are left in our dimension to harass and bother people, trouble people. In the Bible, and in Ephesian magic, which was Ephesus was the seat of magic in the days of Christ. But anyway, they're categorized as snake and scorpion spirits, and you might be familiar with the verse where Jesus promises his disciples that he's given them power over the snakes and the scorpions. And those are two categories of demon spirits.
Right.
Remember, demon spirits are the disembodied spirits of the unrighteous.
So they were people at one point.
They were
human
people.
beings.
They were people at one point in what's called the antediluvian age, the age before the flood. The world became so evil that God destroyed the population of the earth, and the spirits of those evil ones are demon spirits. Now, Anton was a master of astral projection.
Right.
And this is Anton Levay? Is that who you're talking about?
Anton Levay, yeah.
Okay.
Anton Levay, yeah.
They got to be on a first-name basis.
Yeah.
We were not buds, I can assure you that. But Anton and the fellow that was the sergeant at arms in the Church of Satan at the time, whose name is Michael Aquino. I don't know if that rings a bell with either of you guys, but anyway, Anton Levay and Michael Aquino both had highest clearance in the Pentagon because of their ability to astral project.
Wow.
And so they pioneered the whole area of remote viewing.
Really?
And remote viewing was considered, in the 60s and 70s, the premier spying technique, because they could leave their bodies, they could travel on the astral plane, which means they're invisible,
right? And
they're not able to be harmed by any conventional means. You can't choke them, you can't shoot them, you can't stab them, you can't lock them in a cell.
Right.
The only thing that you can do against somebody that's on the astral plane is go onto the astral plane after them in the same manner, and now you're both in the same realm, and so warlocks can do that, and
right.
And anybody with spiritual power, it doesn't have to be the power of the devil,
right.
Anyway, so
would this have been at the same time as like Ingo Swann and Russell Targ and that whole crew?
Project Stargate?
I don't know too much about that project and what they were up to, but there was a whole lot that the Department of Defense was doing in those days that was a combination of the natural plane and the spiritual plane or the astral plane. And so, of course, some of us seen the movie Men Who Stare at Goats.
Yeah.
But that
5 times.
That was actually a spoof of the remote viewing program.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, but the remote viewing program is no joke, and that's why Michael Aquino, even though he was he was identified by 31 children at the Presidio daycare child molest that happened in the Bay Area, the Department of Defense let him walk because of his ties to the remote viewing program. But that was a satanic ritual abuse case that we wound up trying to clean up some of that with women in the church whose kids were molested. But anyway, there's a lot of rabbit trails off this, but so we're talking about evil spirits of different kinds, and human spirits can trouble people. It's exactly like demonic oppression or possession or whatever term you'd use, but the difference is a human spirit has a body to go back to,
right? And
they're still alive, technically alive.
Right.
They're just out doing things on the astral plane, which is, of course, the real craft of zombieism. That's what it is,
right? Trinidadian
zombieism is warlocks who leave their body, they go onto the astral plane, they do all kinds of heinous crimes,
right?
And then they go back into their body, and of course it's an untraceable crime,
right?
So anyway, So we dealt with both. We dealt with Anton Levay, astral projecting into Ray, and trying to kill us, trying to shoot us, stab us, all kinds of things. And then, of course, we dealt with the demon spirits, which are spirits, disembodied spirits of the unrighteous dead. And of course, there are all kind of other spirits. But
anyway. One more quick little clear. So, what is a fallen angel? What are they considered?
Fallen angel is a whole different league.
Is that a principality, or is that what they?
A principality would work with or under a fallen angel, or might be one.
Okay.
Principality is simply the strongest power in a region.
Okay. So if you run into a fallen angel, spiritual warfare, you kind of need some help.
Oh yeah, that's
Michael
that's a whole different league.
Right.
Fallen angels, actually, the gods of the nations that the Bible talks about in Psalm 82, Deuteronomy 32. There's 70 of them.
Right.
Those are fallen angels, and so those would be like the major deities that rule over nations, like Shiva.
Right.
Those kind of principalities, but those some of the fallen angels rule nations and would have lots of principalities under them.
Right.
And there's all different levels. But fallen angels, one of the real distinctive characteristics is that fallen angels have celestial bodies. They do not need to borrow a human body.
Right.
Where demons are disembodied and they feel uncomfortable outside bodies because they can't really interact with this physical realm, except finding expression through a human body.
Now, could somebody, while they're astral projecting, say Anton popped up here, could he actually choke you without a body, or could he injure you without somebody else to possess and utilize?
Have you seen the movie Ghost?
Yes.
Okay, so depending on their power,
right,
they can actually affect things in the terrestrial plane. That's where we get poltergeist.
Right.
Poltergeist is just a German word that means a noisy ghost, or a ghost that has enough power to move things or to affect things in the natural realm. Lots of spirits can't. And there are many, many kind of spirits, and the degree of power, some of them are just kind of nuisances and nobody much knows they're around, but they're up to mischief. More powerful spirits, humans, particularly sensitive humans, can actually feel.
Yeah.
And everyone in this conversation, probably everyone listening, has felt bad feelings. And you know you're not making it up. You know,
right.
like I feel, like for instance, one of the most common spirits that impact people are spirits of fear. And you know they're present because you have inordinate fears. Like there's no reason for me being
right.
afraid. I just feel the presence.
Anxiety
Mm-hmm.
stuff.
And so, like if you go to Cambodia, the prince over Cambodia is Naga. It's a power spirit that is violent.
Right.
And, I'm a peace-loving guy, right? But my first trip to Cambodia, I just woke up. I felt like I wanted to bust somebody's head,
Right.
And I was in Sihanoukville. I went over to do a conference. I woke up in the middle of the night, and I thought, this is completely irrational. I woke up angry.
Right.
No reason to be angry, but anyway, I was feeling the presence of those kind of spirits, because of course the killing fields of Cambodia, they axe murdered 3 million people with
right.
axes,
right.
A lot of violence over there. But my point is, you some spirits are so weak that you don't much feel them. Others, you can feel their presence.
Right.
You can feel the negative emotions. And then there are others that can move things, and it gets more and more powerful.
Right.
There are spirits, a lot of people aren't aware of this, but there are spirits of Incubus and Succubus that rape people.
I wanted to talk to you about that. specifically. Yeah. That was something I really wanted to talk to you about specifically. So, Garrett, can I get into that now before I forget? Or
absolutely, yeah. It's your show, man.
Yeah. Well, no, but I mean, I don't want to. I want you to get everything you need to get it out there too. But we've talked about this a lot on the show because I've got friends and loved ones that have issues with Incubus and Succubus, and I wanted to ask you, Dave, if if you've come across this, and if so, how do you deal with this? Is it different than other sort of I don't want to use exorcisms as a blanket term or anything like that, but what do you do? Is there advice you can give to people that have this problem? Because I feel like it's a little more common than your normal demonic spirits, or maybe it's the same thing. I'm not sure, but could you really dig into that a little bit to help people out that have had those issues?
Yeah, I can. Of course, any dictionary will have incubus and succubus in there with a definition, and that's because it's been so common in human history from all nations in the world. You can go back to Sumeria, and there's stories of incubus and succubus spirits, and of course, lots of other spirits as well. But here's the operative factor that anybody that's dealing with harassment from any kind of an evil spirit, a demon spirit of any variety, or witches or warlocks or whatever, the key is from the writings of Solomon. And of course, most grimoires anywhere in the world go back to Solomon's dabbling with the occult. He was an occult adept. And so most rituals, most curses and incantations come out of one of two ancient books, and the first is called The Greater Keys of Solomon, simply because it's a larger book, and the second is The Lesser Keys of Solomon. But anyway, all that's from the writing of Solomon, who is the king of Israel following David. And he was very wealthy and very wise. He had legendary wisdom. And he dabbled in sorcery, and he became very, very adept at it. And so our whole concept of a genie, everybody's heard of a genie.
Yeah.
It's a powerful spirit that is enslaved to man, and that it's always bound to mankind in some inviolable way. In other words, the genie would have the power to destroy you, right? But it can't, because it's your slave. So we all grew up, with these cartoons. You rub the bottle and uncork it. The genie comes out and says, "Your wish is my command," and then you can make it do supernatural things for you, and then you stuff it back in the bottle and put the lid on, right? Right. So anyway, but that's where our word genie comes from, the root that you get the jinn from, the spirits of the jinn. And Solomon was the one who figured out how to control powerful spirits and enslave them by rituals and make them work for him. So anyway, my point is that most witchcraft, sorcery, incantations in the world go back to Solomonic roots and the things that he learned so many years ago. And one of the keys of Solomon is found actually in the Bible. It's in Ecclesiastes. And it simply says this. It says, wherever the Gadar, it's a Hebrew word that means a hedge of protection, but it says wherever the Gadar has been breached, the serpent has access. And then he just goes on to talk about other things like astral projection and, all kind of weird stuff in Ecclesiastes. Yeah. But here's the key. Why do demons, let's take an incubus spirit. Why would an incubus spirit have the right to rape one person and not go next door and rape the next person?
Some kind of open door.
It's the Gadar. That's the key. And so wherever the Gadar is breached, the serpent has access. So when, for instance, I travel around the world, guys, and help people and there's many kind of spirits and curses, and I spent a lot of time doing this. But the question I always ask them is, when did this start? What was your first memory of it? What were you involved with, or what kind of crisis precipitated this event? And generally, they will know. They may not know the exact details, but they'll say, "Well, I was, involved in we were messing with the Ouija board." A lot of people have no idea how powerful Ouija boards can be.
Right.
But
Or what about
anyway,
childhood abuse and stuff with that?
Childhood abuse is huge. Yeah. Childhood abuse is huge. And so what happens is there's a breach, and it is caused by complicit sin, which is agreement with evil. These spirits are evil, and if you agree with them, it gives them power over you.
So it could be like an unconscious agreement, or an agreement from when you were abused, or something like that. Like when you're in a state where you weren't really sure you were agreeing with it, or in deep trauma, which happens in childhood abuse. There's the perpetrator has power to overwhelm the will of the child and cause the breach themselves. That's not to say at all that the children are guilty of anything. That they simply were taken advantage of. Children are supposed to be protected by parents because they're not old enough and wise enough to protect themselves. Yeah. So in that case, that's what the Bible calls a generational sin or a generational curse. And the child is not at fault, but they are the victim. And I always tell people, just because it wasn't your fault doesn't mean it's not your responsibility or your problem. It could have been an uncle's fault or an older brother or something, but still, it's your problem because it happened to you. And things are broken in the soul. The Gadar, remember, Gadar is a Hebrew word that means to set in safety or to keep protected. And when that is broken, and again in children, the parents and the adults in their lives are supposed to protect them. Yeah. But when that is breached, they're overwhelmed, and that can be the entry point. But in any event, for me, I have come to be a much more compassionate person because I've dealt with so many people who were violated as kids. Terrible things happened to them, and it's not their fault. But it is their problem. And so anyway, So your question, if somebody, like for instance, somebody came and I said, if you could solve one problem here today, what would it be? And they said, well, I'm usually it takes a little massaging to get them to that point. But at some point they'll say, I have bad dreams. And I'll say, you ever feel like you're being molested in your sleep? Yeah. And eventually we get to the point that there's probably a succubus spirit, and it's a little more than a dream, isn't it? But anyway, when we get there, then the whole idea is to go back and find out, where was the Gadar breach? Where were you supposed to be kept safe? In childhood, it would have been somebody that had that responsibility in your life that was negligent. Right. And then as an adult, when we when we come to the age of accountability as teenagers, we can do stupid things on our own. There are gateway drugs. Everybody's heard of them, but there are drugs that specifically open you to the spirit realm. And the problem is that there's no guarantee that because you use a Ouija board, something bad will happen, or because you take a certain drug, something bad will happen. But the point is that you open yourself to the possibility of that. And so lots of people can trace it back to a seance or a ritual that they did. A lot of times just childhood
silliness, Bloody Mary and look into the mirror and all that kind of stuff. But usually they can trace it back to something where they were flirting around with the spirit realm, and there was a breach, and then they've been troubled since. So,
well, for this example, let's use like childhood abuse for that. Like, let's say it's sexual abuse from a sibling or a parent or something like that. How would they go about fixing the breach from something like that?
Well, first acknowledge it, and usually what's associated with that is guilt. Now, again, it's not that they should feel guilty. They were taken advantage of. But most of those people, most of those kids feel like there's something inherently wrong with them or that wouldn't have happened to them. And so we deal with those kind of evil emotions, fear and guilt and anything that's negative that would have established a real influence in their hearts, in their souls, their mind, their thinking at an early age. And we renounce those things. And if there's anything to be repented of, which means turned away from, right? Because a lot of times there are self-defeating behaviors that come out of those negative emotions and whatnot. So I always say deliverance is spelled with 3 R's, and you renounce and repent and then rebuke the spirit. Another way of saying it is you take out the garbage and the rats will leave. But evil spirits feed on evil emotions and evil memories, and that empowers them. And so when you're trying to help somebody, you deal with those things, and it may be saying it wasn't your fault. You were a 8-year-old girl. It wasn't your fault. It was your uncle's fault. And so we're going to renounce guilt. It is not your fault, and you don't have to carry that guilt. And then, a lot of situations there's significant unpacking to do to try to get them in a healthy frame of mind. But these evil spirits, they take advantage of the brokenness of the human soul. And so that's what you're looking for, is how did your soul get broken? How can we move you back towards healing? And then at some point, there's actually a confrontation of a being, a real being, a sentient being that thinks and can actually speak through them and sometimes can do all kind of things. Incubus and Succubus spirits can rape them. There are spirits that, again, bite people, claw people, all kinds of things can happen. But my point is, after you try to identify the Gadar and deal with the brokenness of the human soul surrounding it, then this is all building a foundation for the rite of exorcism. You said you read the book, right? The rite? Yeah. And so that's the rite of exorcism. Exorcism actually means to throw out. And that's the whole idea. It's like evicting an intruder that has broken into a house and doesn't have a right to be there. And so you come with authority and say, "Hey, pal, pack your stuff. You're out of here. Never come back." And that is what Jesus, of course, told his disciples to do. He said, "Go everywhere. When you find people bothered by evil spirits, cast them out. Force them to leave the people alone." Sadly, in America, in the church in America, it's gone from Jesus commissioning every follower of his to do it to a few people here and there that get it, and the average Christian doesn't know diddly squat, which I was a pastor, and I had no idea what was going on. Yeah. So anyway, now, of course, having been through what I've gone through, I spend usually about 10 weeks of the year traveling and teaching people about it, and of course, always doing a lot of it, just trying to help people get free.
Yeah. So even though it doesn't seem like your typical possession type thing, an exorcism might be needed in the end after acknowledging the Gadar and all that kind of stuff and bringing awareness to it. It may end up manifesting in that type of
lots of times.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
That doesn't necessarily mean that the person's possessed. They could just be influenced as well.
Well, I don't even use the term possession. I'll tell you why. We're made in the image and likeness of God, and with evil spirits, they don't have the right to own anybody. They just mess with people. So in the illustration I was using of it being like evicting someone that's intruding, they don't have a right to that house. They've broken in, they found a window open, they've kicked in a door. They don't have a right to be there.
Right.
And so it's not a possession thing. They don't own the house.
Right.
They're just there causing trouble. So actually, most people are not aware of this, but the word possession in terms of ownership is never ever used in the Bible to describe the influence of an evil spirit. It's never used. Because they don't own anything. Actually, Jesus said it this way: the thief comes to steal, kill, and destroy. He's not an owner. He's a harasser, a thief, So I don't even use the term possession. But the degree of influence that an evil spirit can have on somebody ranges from almost imperceptible to what most people would call possession, where they're just slavishly dominated and voices speak out of them. And weird. I mean, that's where the word weird comes from. Our English word weird comes from a certain kind of spirit, a weird spirit.
Really?
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah, like a werewolf.
Werebear, I was thinking that, yeah. Huh.
Yeah.
So do you have any idea, Dave, why why Deborah decided that she didn't want to go through with the what was it called?
The seventh
ritual?
Yeah. Well, Ray, remember Aleister Crowley and Anton Levay was a Crowleyite Satanist. So he studied Anton's sex rituals.
Right.
And so most of the rituals, a huge proportion of the rituals are sex rituals.
Right.
So because of that, they have a lot of children that are born out of wedlock. And so Anton, for instance, he had what was called the royal family, Xerxes Levay. Earlier he had Anthony Levay, but he disowned him. But he had Xerxes Levay, Zena Levay, Carla Levay. They were the royal family. But he had many, many, many sons and daughters that were born out of satanic rituals. And I don't know how far you guys have been into this, but it's very grisly. And they do lots and lots of child sacrifices. And so none of those kids have birth certificates. They're just the result of sex rituals in Satanism, and usually they're put back into the rituals as blood sacrifices. But Ray was born between Anton Levay and an Alini Indian witch. Illinois is named after an Indian tribe that are the proverbial top of the totem pole. And their patron deity is the piazza bird or the firebird, and so they have a lot of power. So in the occult world, they do what they call power convergences, and it's like, we're Crowleyite Satanists, and Anton's power demon was a snake spirit called Leviathan. They had the piazza bird. They try to bring those evil powers together to create even greater power. Wow. And so Anton did a sex ritual with this Alini Indian witch, and Ray was conceived. And so anyway, Anton wanted her to be the mother of the moon child, or to go through the rituals and maybe be the mother of the Antichrist. And the witch wanted her to be a blood sacrifice. So Anton kidnapped her. That's the story of Ray. She was raised in of Satanism. She never had a chance, right? But she was, she was born a little innocent girl, right? She just never had a chance. And so year after year of the satanic ritual abuse and all the stuff that you hear about, it's really terrible. There's some great books about it. Hell Minus One is one of those great books that exposes satanic ritual abuse. But anyway, she just never wanted to do that. And so as it got closer and closer, she got more and more desperate.
Right.
And begin to look for a way out,
So she just wasn't feeling it. She decided this wasn't.
Yeah, I mean, who wants that? I mean, it's horrendous stuff.
Right. And sorry.
No,
we mentioned SRA a couple of times as satanic ritual abuse.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's probably a few people that are aware of that that listen, but that usually involves like sexual molestation, rape.
Oh, it is the worst of the worst. Satanic ritual abuse is designed to completely destroy the human will.
Right.
And it's also based on a perversion of good. So in satanic ritual abuse, they cause you to hate light, love darkness, hate father figures. Satanic ritual abuse is usually perpetrated. For instance, the Presidio daycare abuse. In that satanic ritual abuse, the children were molested, really hurt terribly, and the guy was always dressed up as a priest.
Right.
Well, a priest should protect, right? A father should protect.
Right.
So all of those kind of things, it twists the human soul, the things that should be good and anything that should be thought of as safe, they pervert it and they sabotage it.
Right. And
so what happens is the mind is broken down to the point that nothing works right. And a lot of people don't like to think about this, but the simple truth is that through Operation Paperclip, a lot of what Adolf Hitler had done to the Nazis, he used in the Third Reich. He used the Jews to experiment on. They did all kinds of things. A lot of that came over into the Department of Defense, and they began to experiment with it. And MK Ultra and all that kind of stuff came out of that. That's all based on what they discovered to be the underpinnings of what you could do through extreme trauma.
Right.
And so satanic ritual abuse is actually very scientific.
Right.
It's extremely evil, but it is scientific, and they've pretty well got it down.
So lately we've been hearing about, in our culture and in our political class and the elites, people have really been busted in the UK for pedophilia. You keep hearing this go on and on, even in the States now. I mean, it's just one case after another, and a bunch of lower level people being busted as well. Is that part of this satanic thing, or is there different levels of that as well? Some of it will be part of this satanic ritual abuse, and some of it is just at a lower level, or
exactly. Well, some of it is just good old fashioned perversion. People are perverts, but the SRA, satanic ritual abuse, that's all the scientific stuff. That's not just a pervert that's molesting kids and is in a ring, a pedophilia ring. Satanic ritual abuse is. They have a scope and sequence. They have different things that they specifically have to do in order to accomplish their end, rather than just arbitrary perversions. So there's both kinds. But the satanic the extent of satanic ritual abuse in America and in the world is far beyond what people imagine. There's a great book, if you want to sort it out, in New York. There's a friend of mine named Russ Dizdar, and he wrote a book called The Black Awakening. And he spends almost all his time helping people escape from satanic ritual abuse. And it's very significant. And it's widespread. And it feeds on the naivety of the American people who always say, oh, I'm sure if that were happening, the police would know.
Yeah, exactly,
or if that were happening, the government would know.
I feel like it's cracking open, and that you're right. It is way bigger than people think.
Yeah, yeah.
And just to kind of some background to this stuff, because we've all heard about anybody who listens to podcasts has heard and especially it's mostly millennials, which unfortunately, yes, I'm technically a millennial.
Not unfortunate.
Garrett the millennial.
I missed the Zennial by 1 year.
You don't look like. Yeah, I was going to say you don't look like a millennial.
I missed it by because I've got a haircut and a job. No, this isn't just. So we've all heard about the Satanic Panic and stuff in the 80s, right? In the 90s.
Yeah.
This isn't. When you're telling these stories or talking about SRA, you didn't read a book or you weren't told by a neighbor. You've actually been hands-on dealing with the repercussions and seeing the different things. And you've had witches show up here.
Oh yeah, lots of witches. Yeah.
And so, is it okay if I ask another one?
Bad witches or good witches, or are they all witches bad?
Well, to answer that, the international head of Wicca while he was alive was Anton Levay. Anton Levay simply saw white witchcraft as the recruiting ground for Satanism. So the thing is, they're employing evil spirits in their incantations. So now let me say this: there are a lot of people that are just looking for spiritual reality that gravitate into Wicca.
Yeah,
but where that will lead you, actually, the graduation rite of Wicca is they turn the star over from the 5-pointed star of Wicca to the pentagram of Satanism. And the yin yang, the whole deal, in all good there's evil, in all evil there's good, and one cannot be complete without the other. I'm sure you're aware of that the international doctrine of dualism. But in the graduation from Wicca into Satanism, they'll tell a witch, you've explored the white side of witchcraft, you've gone as far as you can go without the complement, and so you need to now delve into black magic because the one is not complete without the other.
That's how they suck you into, the darkness is really just the absence of light and all that stuff.
So that's why all the Jedis end up going to the dark side.
Nailed it.
There you go. You go.
They got
their
coming and
star
going.
turned over.
And then all the Star Trek people turn into socialists.
So sorry to take you off track there, but yeah, Garrett, that was a really good point you made, that he's experienced this himself. It's not just, reading it and learning about it online. It's been real experience.
Yeah.
Right. And there's a big difference. Like we, being in the little community we have and stuff, we have friends that practice magic. Yeah. I actually have some friends that practice magic and stuff. And
that's kind of what I was getting at.
Yeah. And you know what? They're super, super, super nice guys. What's the difference? I don't know what everybody does at home, and I don't care. I know a lot of people that practice this kind of stuff that are deeply searching for spirituality, that are great, great people. Yeah. Aaron from Charm the Water, some of the stuff that he, touches on is pretty shady. Not shady, that's the wrong word. It's pretty
sketchy.
Risky?
Yeah, it's like right on the risky. I would say definitely risky.
Risky, yeah.
But word. He's just, and he's a Pentecostal Christian turned pagan.
Yeah.
He's just a super, super nice guy. You can feel from that guy that he has no bad intentions. Yeah, he's just hungry for real spirituality, and he didn't get it any other way.
Yeah.
We're actually in the church building right now, and on a pretty regular. Didn't it just a couple weeks ago? Didn't a witch or somebody show up and actually disturb the services and stuff? Yeah. And see, that kind of stuff is just why bother to come in and disrupt a church service if you're just playing with the Ouija board or something. There's another side of it that we don't see.
Exactly.
In our There's definitely a real life battle going on that's very, very real. Yeah. And when you, in our little area, we actually, because we're down the road from Glad Tidings, we've got quite a concentration of that stuff that most of us growing up here have seen firsthand. It's like, whoa, there's definitely a good side or one side against the other, which is,
spiritual warfare.
It is spiritual warfare. and a lot of the Christians, especially like this group, we're not out looking for that. That's not something we're going to, we run into it, you deal with it, but we're not wanting to fight all the time. We just, it'd be nice to just live in peace completely. But, sorry, I think I got off track there too.
No, that's good. No, that's exactly kind of what I was getting at. Is there's spiritual people seeking a deeper spiritual thing, and religious, and they've they don't want to go to the religious side because of the institutionalization of religion and all that. And there has been some trauma there for people. You hear them talking about being recovering Catholics all the time. So people are looking for something deeper spiritual, and I think that's the risk.
Yeah. I agree with you completely. I think that formal religion is one of the great causes of the problem because religion, the idea is it's supposed to be a spiritual experience. Yeah. But when there's no spiritual realism in it, and it's just it's just formal practices and whatnot, and there's no spiritual experience, then people look elsewhere. Yeah. And honestly, I really connect well with those people. I have problems connecting with religious people. Honestly, religious people killed Jesus Christ, and they've been killing true Christians ever since. But the tragedy is that the authentic Christians aren't representing Christ in a way that that spiritual seekers are attracted to. That's the real tragedy.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so, anyway, we're trying to turn that around. But I agree with people all the time. They say, I hate religion. I say, so do I. It's an ugly thing. But true spirituality, it's really simple. The deeper you get into it, and we could talk about the alien agenda too. I don't know where you guys are at on all that, but the point is that there's only two factions. There's the good guys and the bad guys. There are a lot of people caught up in it that aren't really aware much of either side. But the underpinnings is there's a great warfare between powers of light and darkness, powers of good and evil, and there's 7.3 billion people that are somewhere in the mix, but a lot of them have no idea what's going on.
Well, before we get into that, I think I'd like to just continue down the path of what you were talking about. I think, Garrett, you were going to get him to talk about what actually happened with Anton.
Yeah,
and so let's hit that before we get into other stuff.
Right. So with how long was it after Deborah showed up that you realized that she was Anton's?
Well, let's see. I would say it was probably about 3 weeks before she realized before we realized that Anton Levay was her father.
Right.
But it was the night she moved in that we figured out she had a lot bigger problems than just being a homeless woman.
Right.
And I at the time I didn't really even know about the witching hour.
Right.
And so we moved her in, and we're pastors. We try to help broken people, Yeah. So I had asked her if she had any problems. She says, well, I sing karaoke at bars. And I thought, you got to have bigger problems than that, girl. But anyway, she had said that she got in a truck wreck, and her face was bolted together, her jaw was bolted together and whatnot. But anyway, the first night that she spent at our house, and we had 3 young sons at the time, They were, I think, 10, 12, and 13 when we moved her in. And that first night, right after midnight, we just heard a god-awful, blood-curdling scream. And we lived in a big 2-story Victorian, and she just come pot over tea kettle down the stairs, thump, 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 and you know, it was wild. And so we were trying to figure out what was going on, and something was choking her to death.
Right. And
we turned on the lights, and you know, what the hell, right?
Right.
And she's screaming and batting at this thing, and man, I tell you, it was Nightmare on Elm Street.
Right.
And so I didn't know what to do. I just knew there were some Bible verses, you know, about the name of Jesus, and I was just saying everything I could think of out of the Bible, you know.
Right.
In the name of Jesus, I rebuke you. And I didn't know whether to get my gun or what. It was intense, man. But anyway, so then what was going on stopped, and she was being choked to death by something.
Right. Right.
But we couldn't see it, and she could because she had the third eye thing going on.
Right. Right.
So anyway, when it was over, I said, "What just happened?" And she looked at me like it's just another day, you know, at the mall. She says, "Oh, it was Knack." And I said, "What was Knack?" She said, "That thing trying to kill me, that was Knack." And I'm looking at her, you know, I thought she was just a homeless person. I said, "Time out for a minute. What are you even talking about?"
Who's Knack?
She said, "Well, it's a murder spirit." And I said, "How do you know? You know its name?" She said, "Yeah." And I said, "Well, we need to talk."
Right.
How would you know the name of a murder spirit? She said, "Well, you know, I was involved in some witchcraft." And so anyway, that was our education. Well, then I was asked to come do some special meetings in Oregon for some churches that were getting together, and she was living in our house, and that was happening every night.
Right. You're like, eh.
So who do you have watch your guest while you're gone for a week, right?
Yes.
So Jez wasn't there at this point.
Right.
So anyway, so I just called these people. I said, "We're bringing a guest." "Oh, we don't have room for a guest." I said, "That's the deal. If you want me to speak, I'm bringing a guest. In fact, I'm bringing 3 guests because I took 2 guys to hold her down. You know." Anyway, so on the way, we still didn't know that Anton was her father. And on the way, we went through the Wanuchi. It's the tribe. It's the reservation. You know, oh, no, the Winnemucca, Winnemucca reservation. And when at that point we had already figured out, okay, she has demons, and we had been casting them out, and we'd been having some success with some of them. You know, we felt good about it. You know,
right.
But we still didn't know because she hadn't been honest with us. So when we were driving, we had to stop along the highway and cast demons out of her.
Right.
And so we were way late, and I was the keynote speaker at this conference. So we're going about 80 miles an hour down the highway, 85, trying to make up time. And as soon as we passed the sign that said the Winnemucca Indian Nation, a spirit took her over and tried to throw her out of the car. The car door came open. She's, you know, have you seen her? Do you know who she is?
I've seen pictures, yeah.
Okay, so she's a kind of a little gal, thank God. Anyway, I grabbed her hand, and she's hanging out, and I'm trying to keep her off the pavement, and we pulled over, and it was on, and this spirit was talking through her, and I said, "Hey, where did you come from? Who are you?" He says, I'm the power spirit of this Indian nation. And I said, "Okay, so why are you trying to kill her?" He said, "Well, she's defiled by the blood of a virgin sacrifice, and I have the authority to kill her because of it." And, you know, again, you know,
right.
I'm just wading my way in, right? I wasn't a guy that grew up watching horror stories. And I said, what? And said, I've been watching you come down the highway. She's marked with the blood of a virgin sacrifice. I can kill her if I want. And I said, well, okay, I'm a Christian, and I think I have power over you because of Jesus Christ. And if you want to fight over it, I guess we can find out. But I wish you would just let me talk to her for a minute, because I don't know nothing about blood of virgin sacrifice. And we call it going down, but the person, the spirit that was animating or talking through her, different voice, and their eyes looked different, everything,
Yeah.
suddenly was gone.
Wow.
And I said, what's the deal? I said, are you, we were still calling her Ramona at the time. I said, Ramona, are you there? Yeah, what happened? I said, well, you tell me what happened. You just nearly got tossed out of our van on the highway doing 85. And they said it's because of the blood of a virgin sacrifice. And she just started crying. And I said, what is going on? I need to know what's going on. And she said, well, I was in a ritual where we murdered my baby sister. And I'm just,
Wow.
and I got mad, because I said, I moved you into our guest room, and if you don't quit lying to me, I'm going to move you out.
Yeah.
This is not okay. And I said, I want to know what's going on. You've done witchcraft. You've conjured up murder spirits. Now you killed your baby sister?
Right.
And she started crying, and she said, well, you don't know my dad. And I said, no, but I'm open. Who's your dad? She said, Anton Levay. Well, that shocked me.
Right.
I said, the guy
So you
that
knew
carries
who
the
it
big
was right
snake
away,
around?
yeah.
He's hard to miss.
Yeah,
he
yeah.
was.
So anyway, she said, yeah, he's my birth father, and I was in the Church of Satan, and I was angry at the time.
Right.
And I said, how dare you lie to me and risk, you had, my boys were at risk.
Right.
My
They were
wife
right
was
next
at
to you.
risk.
Yeah.
And she's crying, and she said, would you have helped me if you knew who I was? And it got me. And I just looked at her and I said, point well taken. I do not know if I would have helped you.
Right.
I hope I would have. I hope I'm that noble, but I'm not sure. I might have just said, we just don't serve your kind at this bar.
Right.
So anyway, she's crying, and my wife's, you guys know my wife.
Yeah.
Cheryl's extremely compassionate. She said, Dave, God brought her to our church. Jack, the prophet guy, warned you would be face to face with. This is the will of God.
Right.
We need to help this woman. So anyway, that's how we learned who her dad was. And anyway, we were involved in intense spiritual warfare, exorcisms every night.
Right.
We got a group of about 10 people, and we taught them what we knew, people that we really trusted.
Right.
People that wouldn't talk about it because it's just it's too bizarre. And we were pastoring a church of hundreds of people at the time, so,
Right.
You
guys are real big in the 90s.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so I just swore everybody to secrecy, and I said, hey, this is the deal. Jack Sisler told us this would happen. It's happening. We don't understand it, but as Christians, it's in the Bible, so we need to understand it. So let's just put on our big boy pants and figure this out. And
Right.
so we just, would keep somebody with her and pray around the clock, and we didn't get much sleep there it was 10 and a half months going up to Halloween Eve, when she was supposed to do the 7th ritual. And that's what that book's about. That's the night Anton Levay died.
Right. That the night that was supposed to be the 7th ritual was the night that he died?
Yeah.
Wow.
That's really cool finish too.
Yeah.
So when was your first interaction with Anton?
It was right after we found out who he was. He never interacted with us
on this physical plane.
Well, he did. He came to our house and did rituals around our house, and I talked to him on the phone, and they'd leave messages. We still have the Attorney General's office in the state of California has messages that they left that they were gonna, do terrible things to my wife and kids, and it's just really filthy stuff. Burn down our church and crucify me upside down, and blah blah blah. So of course in America it's illegal to threaten people like that. So we had the Attorney General's office come and record those things and put them on record. But anyway, after we knew who he was, then he started interacting and saying, "I want my daughter back." And
right.
So anyway, of course he was a seer. I'm not. I've seen a few things, but based on how much stuff I'm involved in, I've seen very little.
Right.
I'm involved in stuff all the time that would be very animated, all stuff all around, but I don't see it. I just hear them talking out of people, and notice when they try to kill me, stab me to death.
That kind of thing.
Yes.
Now, there's a couple stories that you and Cheryl told. So let's start with the driving down the road with just her and Cheryl, and all of a sudden Deborah starts to disappear.
Well, yeah. Okay, so that's the story.
That's the one. Oh, that's just the first one.
And yeah, well, I've seen. Here's the problem with the average American. The average American believes that physics controls everything.
Mm-hmm.
Well, just by virtue of the fact that it's called physics, no one ever claimed that it controlled anything except the physical realm. Right?
Physics.
But the supernatural realm is just that. It goes beyond physics.
Right.
And so that was a learning curve for me, because I just thought that's impossible. Well, if I could step into the world of the interdimensionals for a moment, they would just laugh and say, "That's impossible for you, pal.
Right.
Not impossible for us."
Right.
Right? Because they can, they have all kind of capabilities that we don't have, and you see it. I'm always talking to Christians who say they believe the Bible, and they struggle with this kind of stuff.
Right.
And I'm always telling them something like, "You're giving me a hard time, and you believe that Jesus walked on the water."
Right.
And Jesus, turned water into wine, and he walked through a wall, right? After his resurrection, the doors were locked, and he just appeared amongst them, right? And then he ate a meal with them, right? Like ghosts don't eat meals; they'd fall out onto the ground, right?
You would think.
So anyway, there's all these really supernatural stories,
right?
And I tell people all the time, like, either you need to quit telling people you believe in the Bible, or you need to crank it up a notch, because the Bible is filled with supernatural stories,
right?
And the problem is, in the West, we become so rationalistic that we really don't believe much in the supernatural element, which is pervasive in all the cultures of the world.
Right.
There's never been a less spiritual, less supernatural culture than Western America.
Especially Western Christianity. It seems like we were neutered at the beginning.
Yeah, oh my goodness. It's sad, man.
It is.
But I go places where the supernatural is so in your face. I was telling you about Vanuatu. If you want an exciting time, go over there, because it's all black magic.
Right.
But it's supernatural.
Right.
So for them, shape shifting, here you got to talk to people like, where do you think we get the term weird? It's from a weir spirit, a werewolf. They actually can transmogrify the human body. Then where do they go? Well, that's physically impossible.
Right.
This ain't about physics. It's about something that goes beyond physics, right? So you need to get out of that box. Well, in the nations of the world, the further they get from the West and from rationalism, the more open they are about that. Right. And I could tell you stories from all the nations that just go. It's they just live with it. Right. People change shapes. All kind of weird things happen.
Well, if I'd been in the car with Deborah when that happened, I think I would have. I don't know how I would have reacted exactly. Probably not as well as Cheryl did. Well,
Cheryl said, "What's happening to you?" Because she was going through the firewall, just going right down through the car.
But it started because she started screaming, "They're taking me to hell!" Right?
Well, first she started saying, "They're coming for me," and Cheryl's saying, "I got you. You're good. We got Jesus." No, they're coming for, and it was again in an Indian reservation. Because of her connection with the Illini Indians, and so they had rights against her based on her Indian magic. But anyway, so then she started screaming, "They're trying to take me to hell," and she just started disappearing.
Right. She actually started to physically disappear through the floor of a car. Yeah. Like her physical legs were through the car and into the ground, essentially.
Well, who knows where they were? We just knew where they weren't.
Right.
So from the knees down, she had disappeared through the bottom of the car. She was screaming and saying, "You can't do that to me. I'm still in physical form." She's dialoguing with these spirits, and meanwhile, Cheryl's watching her go through the bottom of the van.
Right, disappear through the floor.
And so she pulled over, started, praying. And what we do in the name of Jesus, right? These signs shall follow them that believe in my name. They'll cast out demons, and they can walk among the snakes and the scorpions, which are the two categories of demon spirits that afflict man. I don't know if I mentioned that, but snake spirits have to do with the soul, and scorpion spirits have to do with the physical body. But anyway, so she just started praying and rebuking the spirits, and Deborah came right back up through onto the chair and said, "Oh, thank you, sissy, thank you. I thought they were going to take me to hell." But we saw things, obviously it stretched my mind to irrecoverable proportions. I went from just a guy that grew up on a ranch and believe I had a historical faith in the Bible. I thought all those things probably did happen, long ago. But in terms of believing in the supernatural, I had never seen anything supernatural.
Right.
And I was, I told Cheryl before I wrote The Serpent Savior, I said, if I write a book, I'm going to call it Confessions of a Recovering Skeptic.
Right.
Because I was just forever just saying, what the hell? What is going on? Or, and if there was ever a good reason to say what the hell, it was then. Because I know this is demonic. It's the devil somehow. It's bizarre.
Right.
And we saw that for 10 and a half months up until Anton's death. And then, of course, Deborah, we prayed for her a lot after that.
Right.
We're still in touch with her. But anyway, forever changed our lives, that's for sure.
Now, did you ever see any, did you ever see any like full blown like levitation? Like when she was asleep?
We saw Deborah levitate. We also saw, we could see Deborah screaming and being pulled through the room, but we couldn't see what was pulling her. But by the feet, her legs up in the air,
right?
Her trying to grab something, and of course she could see those beings,
right?
But we couldn't,
right?
And as we prayed for her and cast evil spirits out of her. And brought healing to her. eventually her third eye closed and she couldn't see those spirits anymore, which was great for her because they would terrify her. They'd just appear to her at night and terrify her.
Right. Another one of those stories that this one's kind of one of the more, this one reached out and touched me somehow because I was like, whoa, I didn't know this was possible. But when she was driving down Bridge Street, I believe it was, and Deborah's in the passenger seat, and all of a sudden people start randomly turning towards her, pushing strollers. All of a sudden they stop what they're doing and turn and point their fingers at her all the way down the street.
We saw that all the time.
And see, those are that could have been me, or maybe not me, but
it couldn't have been you, but anybody that had significant demonic influence. They didn't even know they were doing it. They'd be pumping gas and they'd just go like this.
Right.
Which is, you know what that is.
Yeah.
It's the horn hand. That's the way they push curses.
Right.
But anyway,
rocking out is dangerous?
No. Different.
Like, is that the same as...
Well, probably for some of the folks there, it is the same. And for most of them, it's sort of like the peace sign, which is an ancient symbol of Hecate, which is a fallen angel. Most people don't know that. The yin yang, people think it's a surfing logo, right? So anyway, most of the people are just caught up in things and they're not aware of the significance of what's going on around them.
Right.
But they're probably at most rock concerts are people who are pushing curses and came there for that reason.
Right. It's like there's people at the church here that do it too. Yeah. And all over the place when they decide to show up.
Yeah.
Well, what would you say was the craziest thing you saw during that whole time?
Oh my goodness, the craziest thing. Well, to me, there's a whole. It's the genre of the supernatural. To me, I think if someone's levitating, if someone's being pulled through what we would call material objects,
right?
Or if someone's being pulled across the carpet by an unseen thing, it's all kind of in the same category.
Right.
It's supernatural. It boggles the mind, and for me, it really created faith in the bigger world that most people don't even acknowledge.
Right.
And that's where I got into the alien thing through this, right? And then people started saying, something happened to me, but you probably wouldn't believe it. I just said, try me, baby. I'll believe almost anything at this point, right? You think you're crazy. Let's compare stories.
Right.
But anyway, that's how I came up with this worldview is there's supernatural good and there's supernatural evil. They're warring against each other. And humanity is caught in the middle of that.
Right.
And there are people who know and are perpetrating the kingdom of light, the goodness.
Right.
And there are people who know and are perpetrating the kingdom of darkness, the evil. And then there's a bunch of people in between, and they're just trying to, figure out life. And
I think that's what most of these guys,
they're trying
to
pay the bills, and
right.
And they hear about alien abductions, and they just think, I think the guy's flown over the cuckoo's nest, because that's never happened to them.
Right.
Once it happens to you,
right.
then it's just part of your accepted facts.
Right.
But until it's happened to you, you just think, I don't understand that. It seems to defy physics. It doesn't make sense to me.
Right.
And so I'm just going to put that in the cuckoo column.
Right.
And right now, you guys know this, but most churches in America would think I'd just totally gone nutso.
Yeah.
My own brother pastors in Boise. He's scared spitless of me.
Well, most of the churches around here. It's funny. I get a kick out of it now because where you go to church, and I'm like, all right, let's see what they do.
Yeah.
See how they react to this. And then I went to Bethel. Went to Bethel before.
Yeah. Well, we had a bunch of people leave Glad Tidings and go to the Bride, right?
Right.
And it was too intense, and because we have druid priests and stuff come in and try to curse us right in the middle of the meeting,
Right.
and so they just tapped out. But they're good people,
Right.
So anyway, Bob, I was in a restaurant the other day, and he came over and he said, "Hey, I got to talk to you." He said, a lot of people left your church because of all the wild things happening. And I said, yeah. He says, and now wild things are starting to happen in my church.
It's like, congratulations.
I said, yeah, there you go. Congratulations. But, there are a lot of broken people, a lot of people messing with the occult, sorcery, and the Harry Potter movies, which were very entertaining and whatnot. But the problem with the Harry Potter movies is they cast witchcraft as a very, very desirable thing.
Right.
So young people, but there are a lot of people that are in their 30s and 40s that are like, let's do witchcraft, because everybody is craving something supernatural, because we're made in the image and likeness of God. If we don't have supernatural reality, we feel empty. Right. That's why there's all the Spider-Man and Superman and Batman and all the Marvel comics and Wonder Woman. There's something in us that knows it ought to be more than just this.
Right.
And so people are looking for it and reaching out for it, and if they don't find it if they don't find God, I'm not talking religion, if they don't find an experience that is divine and supernaturally divine, then they'll cast around and watch a Harry Potter movie and think, hey, I'm going to try some rituals. And I've cast demons out of people that came into them in Harry Potter movies.
Really?
Yeah.
Well,
That's a hell of a way to go out.
It is. So let's go. This has always been a big, we've heard these stories for years. Walk us through the last couple days up to Anton.
Yeah.
Showdown.
Okay. So he would threaten us all the time.
Right.
And I had told him, he used to call me Preacher Boy, and he said, "You're nothing, Preacher Boy. You have your head up your ass. You don't know what's going on," and just would mock me. I'm a world-class sorcerer, and you're nothing.
Right.
And I'd always say, okay, then how come I still got your daughter after 10.5 months? Why don't you just come get her?
Right.
If you're all that in a bag of chips, why don't you just come get her? Yeah. And sometimes he'd astral project into her and speak through her and try to kill me and stuff, through her.
He tried to shoot you and stab you.
Tried to shoot me, tried to stab me, kick me in the crotch, and all kind of stuff, But
that's dirty
anyway,
for Anton Levay.
Yeah, and then of course Deborah was small, and we'd just mug her and hold her down, and he'd say if she had a bigger body, I'd let a whooping on you. But anyway, so we were going through all these things, and he was saying, you're protected or I would kill you.
Right.
And I said, really? Tell me about it. Who's protecting me? He says, all them damn angels are all around you. Yeah, which was good news to me, because I knew he was trying to kill me.
Right.
And I said, well, A, they're not damned angels.
Right.
But B, you keep saying you're more powerful than I am, but you can't touch me. I mean, where's the math on that?
Right.
So anyway, we would have these conversations, and so he would say, wait till the night of the rituals, and she will be at the ritual either as the bride of Satan or as the blood sacrifice, but she will be there.
Right.
And, I'd just tell him, no, she won't. She's done with that. She's not going back. And God's more powerful than the devil, and we're going to win. Right. So anyway, we had this thing, and it had gone on, and it was heating up, and he sent guys to, just stalk me, and, they'd wear satanic ritual shirts to show somebody being sacrificed on an altar and just try to creep me out. And honestly, I don't creep out very easy.
Right.
And so anyway, that was going on, and I was glad that God kept my wife and my son safe, because that,
Right.
But anyway, so it was leading up to that time, and so when Halloween Eve came, we knew when the rituals were, because
Right.
Deborah told us.
Right.
They'll start the proceedings at midnight, which is Halloween Eve. Now midnight, it becomes the 31st, right? So it's early in the morning on Halloween. So they've already done all their stuff when the trick-or-treaters come out, right? It's already over with. But anyway, we knew that would happen, and so we got our prayer team of these 10 people that had helped us, and we said they'll start their rituals at midnight, and they want Deborah at the rituals. So I want everybody to come over at 9, and who knows what's going to happen. My dad was a gunsmith. I've carried guns most of my life.
Right.
And so I was all strapped up. I didn't know what was going to happen. Maybe we're going to go Old Testament here.
Right.
But anyway, we were going to win. So
that's the cowboy in you.
Going Old Testament. I like that.
So anyway, I just told him, I said, hey, if you come over tonight, all bets are off on what's going to happen. And it's going to be intense. It could be demonically intense. It could be physically intense. They might come and try to pick her up, and us, have to bust some chops or whatever. So anyway, but I had a good team, and they had been with us through at least 6 months of this.
Right.
The first part we kind of handled just a few of us, but anyway. So 9 o'clock, some of them were starting to come over, and Deborah Joy just comes out smiling, and she says, I'm going to walk to 7-Eleven. And I said, you out of your mind? I said, it's Halloween Eve. You're not going to walk anywhere. She said, oh, Daddy, you worry too much. And I was just like, what is up with that?
Right.
And I said, you're not okay. She said, yeah, I'm okay. I said, no, you're not okay, Deborah. You're not thinking straight. She said, I'm thinking straight. You need to learn to trust God. That's what she said. I said, Deborah, I trust God. I don't trust Anton Levay. So I said, why don't you go up to your room and pray? And when she went upstairs, I told Cheryl, I said, I do not know what's going on. Because usually, if a spirit was controlling her,
right,
her personality would change and her eyes would change and everything. And so I told Cheryl, I said, I do not know what's up with Deborah, but she just said she was walking to 7-Eleven alone. That does not make sense tonight.
Right.
So our house, I said, you watch the back door, I'll watch the front door. There's something up. So I went out to the front door and sat on the steps, and I was praying and trying to figure out what happened. And these 3 cop cars came screaming up with their lights on, and it's like, whoa, what's going on? I stood up to find out what's going on. Deborah Joy comes running out saying, help me. She's cussing. She's saying, he's a kidnapper. He's been holding me as a sex slave. And it's just like, what is going on? And it was Anton who had astral projected into her, but didn't sound like he usually sounded.
Right. He disguised his voice.
He had disguised his voice to sound like her. Well, I jumped up and was running after her, and they drew down on me.
Right.
And because you can, from their point of view, it's like, you kidnapping, sexual molesting, predator scumbag, we'll just shoot you in your front yard. Right. And I just like, whoa, what are you guys doing? And they said, we're here on a kidnapping call. And obviously she's running from you. And so what do you do? I just thought, let's see, if I try to say that's not really her father's spirit is talking through, they're going to take me straight to mental health. Right? I mean, what do you do? And so I just said, that is not what's happening here. And they said, well, it sounds like that's what's happening. She called us from your upstairs.
Wow.
And she finally got her hands on a cell phone, and that you'd been holding her there and molesting her and doing all kind of stuff. And I said, that is not true. They said, well, we'll find out. But for right now, if you try to contact her in any way, you're in big trouble. And then another guy came, and they were talking about arresting me right on the spot.
Right.
And I'm thinking about Anton laughing, saying, you wait till...
right, he had it all.
You wait till Halloween, you'll see.
Right.
And I honestly, it was a major disappointment, because I thought we've invested thousands of hours into her. And,
right.
And I told one of the police officers, one of them came to my church, and I said, listen, I don't have time to explain what's going on. You know that I haven't been molesting her. And he said, actually, Pastor, I'm sorry, but we don't know. I said, what are you talking about? He said, I'm talking about an adult that just called on a kidnapping charge, and you are in very serious trouble here.
Right.
So we got this ministry called Trauma Intervention Program, and one of the pastors, every time there's a 911 call, he gets it.
Right.
But most people don't even know Lou's associated with the church, right? They just think he's Mr. Trauma Intervention. So I was sitting there thinking, what am I going to do? And they told me to sit down, and this officer said, I think they're going to arrest you right now. And so I called Lou.
Right.
And he happened, coincidentally, to be right in our neighborhood.
Right.
He said, man, I'm 2 blocks from you. I said, get your butt over here. I am in deep kimchi. So he came over and pulled up. He's tip, right? He's got his shirt on. He says, hey, got some trauma over here? Yeah, we got some trauma. This preacher's kidnapped this woman. And you know, the guy's one of my best friends, but they didn't know that, right? And he's on staff with me. He said, well, you mind if I talk to the preacher? They said, no, we're about to arrest him, so you have to make it pretty quick. So he came over and said, what in the heck's going on? I said, Lou, Anton Levay, astral projected, took Deborah over, speaking through her, and used our phone to call the police on me, and gave them a big report about me kidnapping her. And if she leaves with them, we'll never see Deborah alive again. And he said, well, what am I supposed to do? I said, I don't know, but I took Cheryl's cell phone, and I said, try to get in the back of the police car,
right,
and slip this into her pocket. And so he said, okay. So he took the phone, and he said, you mind if I talk to the woman? They said, no. So he gets in there, and of course, Anton didn't want nothing to do with him. So he closes the door, and she's like, hey, get out of here, you know, and they're going back and forth. But in the scuffle, he shoved that phone into her pocket, and he got out, and he said, I don't think I can help that lady. Anyway, we were using the phone I was going to track her.
Right.
And so anyway, they pulled off, and she pulled up, you know, Anton flipping me off with both hands laughing, you know.
Right.
I told you so. So anyway, I thought all is lost after all this work. And so I strapped up. I got some extra magazines and stuff. And I thought, I am not going to let them sacrifice her. And if I die, I'm going to go out like John Wayne. I'm going to go out big. Right. So none of the other guys wanted to come with me. So I just said, well, I'm going up to the ranch. Grass Valley Ranch. That's where the Church Satan owned 80 acres up there, and that's where they did their ritual. They still own it, by the way. But anyway, I headed up there, and I told Cheryl, I said, go to Hell Motel. There's a place where we found Deborah, and we knew Satanists lived there. And I said, probably they're staging somewhere, and Anton's body is somewhere close. And then he astral projected out and took Deborah over as a zombie. Right. And I said, check Hell Motel. So I was just headed out through Marysville by that old graveyard, headed out of town. And Lou called and said they just dropped Deborah Joy off, and she went into Hell Motel, but she's walking like a zombie. Well, yeah, that's because she is.
Right.
So anyway, so I turned around and came back, and on the way back, I was praying, and I remembered about the silver cord. And I had called a guy that had some experience with the other book, the book that's called, what's that? I forgot the book's name, but it's about satanic ritual abuse.
Right.
And he came to set the captive free. And there was a guy that I had heard comment on that, and I had called him earlier, not that night. I'd called him earlier, and I said, when the warlock is controlling somebody, astral projecting into him, you can't treat them the same as demons because they're human spirits, and humans don't have to submit to Christ. We all have a choice, right?
Right.
So he would just cuss me out when I tried to rebuke him in Jesus' name or something. He'd just say, "Screw you! I don't have to submit to that,
right? Because
I'm not a demon."
Right.
So anyway, I called this guy. It was very annoying. I called this guy and I said, "What do you do?" He said, "I don't know what to do." He said, "I've thought about the verse where Solomon talks about cutting the silver cord." He said, they're on the astral plane, which means they're connected to their physical body by the silver cord.
Right. So
he said, Solomon says when you cut the silver cord, you're dead, and maybe you can cut the silver cord. Well,
scissors.
You're messing with killing somebody, right? So I just thought, whatever. I'm not trying to kill anybody. That night,
cut that silver cord.
That's exactly what happened. I called the person that was heading up the meeting at our house, and I was just about to see Lou and Cheryl, and I said, I want us all to pray one prayer and ask God to cut Anton Levay's silver cord. He's on the astral plane. He's controlling Deborah. And tonight somebody's going to die. It's either Anton Levay or Deborah, and so I want everybody to pray simultaneously and in a unified effort that God had cut his silver cord. And I got out and I was standing in front of that hotel. Have you ever been over there?
Is it Motor Lodge? Was that the one that was on the corner where CVS is now?
No. It's right up against the levee. It's over by the Ace Hardware store over there in Marysville.
Oh, yeah.
So anyway, I was standing in the street there. I knew she was in there. I knew the whole coven was in there.
Right.
And Anton was in there. And I was all strapped up. If they came out, we were going to have an OK Corral shootout.
Right.
But I just started shouting in Jesus' name. We cut Anton's silver cord. And I just got started praying. And all of a sudden, Deborah Joy comes running out of the door. Says, "Daddy, help me." I jammed her in the car, and we sped off.
Right.
And while we were driving home, I said, "What happened?" She said, "Anton bounced," which means you can't get back into your body.
Right.
And I said, "And you saw it?" She said, "Of course I saw it. As soon as he left me, I came back conscious."
Right.
And he was trying to get it into his body, and he couldn't because somebody cut his silver cord.
Oops.
Imagine that.
Holy.
And I said, "How did you get out of the room?" And she said, "Everybody gathered around him and was trying to do incantations to help him get back in his body. And I just ran out the door. And when I came down the stairs, you were standing there."
Wow.
Right.
So we went back to our house, and everybody's there. God cut Anton's silver cord. And I walked in and I said, "It happened, dude. He's dead."
Right.
And they all just looked, I mean, we're Christian people, like, we killed the guy?
Yeah.
Should we have killed the guy? And I said, "Listen, it was him or her."
Right.
He had already told me he was going to have her as a blood sacrifice. And he had every chance to repent and to change his ways, but she is innocent and he's abused her entire life.
Right.
So I said, hey, it's collateral damage, but that's the deal. He's dead. So then Deborah's there, right? And all of a sudden, and this is the only time I saw this happen. But it's in the movie The Rite when that powerful spirit ball, when it enters into that guy, his eyes turn red and look like lizard eyes,
right,
and bugged out. That happened to her. Yeah, we were all gathered around her, and all of a sudden she just went full on manifest, man, and her eyes turned red, and I just started praying, and the spirit said, I'm Leviathan, you killed the high priest, and I have come for her. And I said, you can't have her. Said, she's next of kin. I said, no, she's not even in that family anymore. You cannot have her. And that spirit disappeared. It just came and manifest and then was gone. And we're looking at each other like, zounds, that was out there, man.
Right.
And then suddenly another voice said, you murderer, you killed my father. And it was coming through Deborah. And I looked at her and I said, your father, so you're either Carla or Zena. And she said, I'm Zena. And I said, well, here's the deal, Zena. Your dad just lost his life doing what you're doing right now. And if I was you, I'd get back my body real quick.
Right.
And she said, I'll go. Disappeared.
Right.
Wow.
We all looked at each other like, I think we just got an atomic secret here.
Right.
You know, this cutting your cord, because she was obviously scared.
Right.
And we looked at each other and, you know, we thought, I think there's a dead guy over there in Hill Motel. And then, of course, the next morning it was in the news.
Right. So what we do, there's appeal Democrat newspapers that show Anton Levay died in Marysville.
Yeah, and you know, if you go on Wikipedia, it says there, for some reason, unexplained reason, there's a contradiction where he died and exactly when. But we know when he
hospital, right?
We know when he died because because we were out there standing in the road when it happened.
Right.
And you know, still after that happened, Halloween Eve, 1997. Still, we run once in a while into a warlock somewhere that instantly will recognize us. It's happened to my boys.
Right.
Joe was down in San Francisco, and he saw somebody holding a Necromonicon, which is a grimoire.
Right.
It's a powerful witchcraft grimoire. And, of course, the boys were around all this, and he saw it, and he saw the goat's head on it, and he said, hey, you could get yourself in real trouble reading that. And he said, no, I know what I'm doing. He said, I also know who you are. Joe said, you don't know me. I'm not from around here. He says, yeah, no, you're from Yuba City. He said, tell your dad the fight with Anton isn't over yet. Isn't that something? That happened like 4 years after he died.
Right.
And we've heard that a number of times since then.
Right. Well, you guys seem to be doing okay.
Yeah.
That's a challenge.
Yeah. So anyway, that's the story.
Happy Halloween.
Yeah, there you go.
Did you guys have any other questions or anything?
No,
I think that about, that was great.
Pretty good ending, really, to the.
Yeah. There's not really too much you can do to.
Yeah, I mean, I would have liked to get in a little bit more about the overarching spiritual warfare, and you know how the difference between aliens and the spirits, that type of thing. But I mean, I think I get the picture of what you're talking about. That it is you know, multidimensional, and it doesn't just stop in our human physical form. It can be universal, I guess. All different planets and different types of aliens and all that as well. You know. Yeah,
it's a big universe out there.
Yeah.
Well, maybe when I interview Dave for my podcast, you can sit with me, Graham.
That sounds good.
Absolutely.
That sounds great. Yeah.
That'd be cool. You're always welcome too, Darren.
Yeah.
No, forget. Fuck it. No, absolutely. Big thanks to Garrett for setting this up, and big thanks to Pastor Dave for for taking the time out of his evening here to come on the show. And I think everyone will enjoy it. This is it's a fascinating story. It's a great story. It's a spooky story. And I think all the listeners will have a blast.
Yeah, and I really appreciate your balance around it all, and very non-dogmatic. And I kind of figured you kind of get that whole spiritual part, as opposed to the religious part. And it's great to chat with you about that.
Yeah.
So do you have jujitsu in like 10 minutes, Garrett?
What was that?
You have jujitsu in the morning?
No, Friday.
Oh, so you don't have to get up at like 3 in the morning?
No, thank God. That's usually the gym, and then I go to jujitsu at night.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Right on, guys.
Well, guys, it's good to meet you both.
Yeah, you too.
You too. Yeah, Garrett, tell your wife Lisa's going to send her a letter soon.
Cool. She's actually online here with us.
She says it's coming.
She says hello.
Hi. Tell her I've been waiting for it for a couple of months now.
Okay. Waiting, checking the mail.
She takes after Darren.
Still nothing.
She's on Grimes time. It's okay.
Yeah, it's okay.
Right
okay,
on.
guys.
Yeah, thanks a lot, guys. It was awesome.
All right, cool. We'll see you later.
Good to meet you guys.
Bye,
you too. You too, Dave. Take care.
Have a good night.
Okay, bye.
That was our chat with
Pastor Cowboy Dave.
Wow. And Garrett Lee. That was a great one, eh?
Holy, that was amazing.
Wow. Yeah, that was a good one.
Yeah.
That was a good one. I guess we'll keep this short and sweet. Big thanks to Pastor Dave and Garrett for coming on the show, staying late. It is extremely late on the tail end of an 8-hour shift in the igloo. We didn't even get everything done.
No, we didn't.
All right, guys, check out grimerica.ca/support. Your support really does help keep us going. There's a bunch of monthly options there. Those really are the best if you can. If not, you can do a one-time donation as well. That helps too. And if not, there's about 10 different ways you can help the show that don't cost you a dime. Just check out the show notes. I'm not going to go through them here now. Check out the show notes. Do all that stuff for us. That'd be great. Thanks for listening, guys.
Yeah, thanks. Happy Halloween.
Yeah, happy Halloween, guys. We'll see you next week.
Graham.